Welcome to the May State of the Union. Thanks for joining us. On the mail caging side of things, I'm going to call essentially flat, down 0.25%. Gifts down 4%, but tough to slide a piece of paper in between those two results when aggregated. We do see that there's a significant amount of variance in the sectors. And so public policy sector, those working on public policy, we kind of knew that would be up right after the elections, and that has been fairly consistently up. Public broadcasting has urgent messaging that it's going out with right now. And then on the flip side, we are seeing somewhat declines in health charities right now. So four sectors making more than the others. Those sectors increased 11%. Those that are not increasing were down 8%. Some variability there. Environmental is the one flat one in the bunch. Average gift did go up. So drop in 4% in gifts, drop nearly flat in revenue. So of course, average gift did go up a good bit. This is the fourth straight month of average gift being up, but that variance from last year is becoming less and less. April was the month of tariffs and declining consumer confidence, and those could have been impacting what people were willing to give and how much. Overall, year to date, revenue up 8%, total gifts up 2%. However, much of that gain was in January. And so that could be some organizations changed the way they accounted for their fiscal year. We tried to take those out to the extent possible, but that could be an influence. And we're also, and we'll show this in a little bit, seeing much longer than usual first-class mail delivery times that, of course, are impacting when donations get to a processing center. Year to date, up generally across sectors, up 8%. Only 3 sectors have less revenue than they did same time last year. Looking at the monthly breakdowns of this, you can see, for example, some of these sectors like disease charities, hospital charities, human services. January was their one good month, and then they're down more consistently across. And then there are others that public policy has been continually strong every month. So I mentioned and teased the idea of inconsistent first-class mail services. What you see here in red is last year's delivery curve, and in blue is this year's delivery curve. So instead of things getting back in week 3 as a modal point, it's week 8, 3, and now it's week 6. And so first-class mail delivery is changing response curves significantly. So that may also be a part of why January was good. You had additional spillover from December that you wouldn't normally have had. And every organization has their own. We accrue back 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 1 week or a full month or whatever of results. Or sometimes it's a month out, but it's those pieces that were sent in the previous year. All of that means if you have a longer delivery curve, more of that revenue is flowing into the next year. It also means when you have a mail piece that isn't looking like it did last year, the time to panic is later than it has been before. With these longer response curves, it's taking longer to get results, and that has an impact on our knowledge continually. Question in the chat. Do we have the same metrics for nonprofit mail pieces? Nonprofit mail pieces, the delivery has actually been much more consistent because those are, they are pre-sorted and they are zip-fived and they are stamped and they are bundled and they are sent in ways that are able to be read efficiently by electronics. And so there's not this same, I think it's a day longer when we looked at it than it was last year for those pieces to get out. I will try to get the exact numbers from our production solutions folks and send them out. The first class mail services, because you can't scan the barcode on it, we suspect that's why, plus the shift to package delivery, of course. That's been a consistent challenge with us with we mailers in the USPS. We've had a changeover in Postmaster General I know we are working to try to educate and consult with the new Board of Governors, the new Postmaster General, most of whom don't have a mail background. So educating them about what this backbone is for us at the same time as you may want packages, but we are what keeps the lights on, and you are what keeps the light on for us. So frustrating, but one that we're educating and we're talking about now, so that when CEOs come back and say, "Why are the mail pieces taking so long?" There's an answer. Good question. Thank you, Rachel. Feel free to shout out any other questions. I'll plow ahead to talk about, there was an interesting study recently on online donors' stated preferences. And so there are two caveats built into my title slide. First is that we're talking about online donors' preferences. So these are people who have given in the past year. And this is nonprofit Tech for Good. So these are people who have made an online donation in the past 12 months, most of whom are from the United States. There is some international built in, but when you see trends here, they'll fit fairly well with the United States. The other is that these are stated preferences. There's going to be a figure later on here, I believe, that 52% of people say that they would spend an hour or two of their week doing social media influencer type projects of reposting and engaging with nonprofits content if they were asked. And it reminds me of a survey that I did while I was at MAD. We asked Americans if they would donate to MAD, and 52% of people said that they were active donors. And let me tell you, if that were true, drunk driving would be done. I presented that to our board and said, all this means is that 51% of Americans are liars, which is obviously too harsh. We're wired for social desirability. We are wired to say the thing that we want the person to ask to wants to hear in surveys. And so those are the grains of salt with which I would take this survey. So what communication method is most likely to inspire a donation? People are saying email and social media. Interestingly, print mail is fourth. So this is among online donors. And you have heard my rants would be a little unkind to me, but sometimes rants about how, especially for donors under the age of 50, for donors under the age of 50, about half of mail donations or more are made online. They are stimulated by the mail piece. People go online to do that. And so when you have almost 10% of people saying, I prefer to get a mail piece to donate online, that's a significant thing. There are some interesting website as number 3 is interesting because how did you get there? What was the communication method that caused you to get there? And so a website can be influential, but that is apparently donors are doing their own bottom of funnel attribution analysis when we would talk about top of funnel, but here you go. How would you like to be thanked for your donation? Email, overwhelmingly among online donors. Print, 28% between print letters and print postcards. And this is something that we actually said in, some of you downloaded our Morecast 2024 report a year and a half ago. Thank you for those who did. And one of the things that we projected is that people would be doing more and more omni-channel thank yous. And you do see people going more gradually toward that. This would tend to indicate that, hey, people might actually like, if you made an online donation, to get a letter, perhaps at a certain level, to say, thank you for your donation, here's what it's helping do. Or when you mail in your check, if we have your email address, and that's something you can have with an append most of the time, to say, especially with the long lead times that we have, hey, we just got your donation. We're putting it to work right now. We're going to send you out the letter that we usually do, but wanted you to know, thank you immediately upon us receiving it, and here's a video. So that type of omni-channel thank you, we talk about omni-channel marketing on the front end. This may tend to indicate that omnichannel on the back end could work as well. I do not know who the 4% of people are who want to be thanked with a phone call, just that I am not one of them. Like, my phone does a number of wonderful things. Phoning is very rarely one of them. Social platforms for learning about news and campaigns from nonprofits. Facebook's still number one, Instagram's still number two. I was kind of surprised that LinkedIn came in at 22% still, but an indicator that people are considering consuming nonprofit news along with what I would consider more business news type things. This would also tend to indicate that if you haven't set up your Snapchat account, you probably don't need to. And there is the whole content marketing of enter the places where your people are and get good at them before going to more and more tangential ones. I would agree with this. Personally, I would put YouTube, even though YouTube is below X, in a prioritization, I would put it above, just because YouTube videos also have other uses. You don't have to go to the YouTube platform. You can have a video that's there and on your website and on Facebook. Preferred payment methods. This goes along with other studies that I've seen that PayPal it's Visa, it's MasterCard, and then it's PayPal, even before you get to Amex some of the time. So that's a big one. You do see some of the more niche payment vendors on the list. Apple Pay, I would say first among those. If you had to pick only one to do beyond PayPal, Apple Pay looks like it would be the one to do. Crypto at the bottom of the list. However, crypto donations tend to be much larger than your average donation. And so, stock transfers, cryptocurrency, those may be at the bottom of the list, but still very potentially profitable. Some other surveys from this, I mentioned the 52% numbers that they would spend. I'm sorry, it was 1 to 2 hours monthly promoting fundraising campaigns. I'm still a little skeptical of that number, but it's still better than weekly. 46% say they've given a tribute gift in the last 12 months. Usually that is for bereavement, but people also indicated weddings and graduations and things like that. 38% donated through Facebook. 70% would do it again. Not hugely great retention numbers. And some of the benchmarks that we're seeing is a drop of almost half in Facebook fundraisers from 2023 to 2024. Zuck giveth and Zuck taketh away. And it's a good reminder we don't build our houses on rented land. It's why we have a website. It's why we build emails. It's why we make people our constituents rather than interacting with them exclusively through social content. And then a third say they've used QR code to donate. They had their moment in COVID, and I think that really did boost adoption, and people are using those more and more. Some DAF updates, 2 studies on them. One of them is the independent report on DAFs. You can see from the Institute of Policy Studies. This is interesting because you've heard me talk about, Schwab said this and Fidelity said that, and the DAF report says the other thing. And so this is kind of an equal time report because it does critique how those reports do look at donor advised funds. They do come out and say DAFs are a broken system. And so there is some advocacy spin on the ball to this, but there are some that you can decide to believe or not believe. But since I covered one side, probably should cover the other. Their arguments are that when the DAF reports that are usually done are done by those who are the providers of DAFs, they're trying to come at it from an independent viewpoint and with a transparent data set. And the 2 things that they do that they say others don't do is they don't use estimated data, and they do account for DAF to DAF transfers. And so if you're putting money from one DAF into another DAF, some organizations will treat that as a disbursement, when in reality it's still staying within the DAF ecosystem. So top line, they're saying contributions have grown 37%, but did fall the last 2 years. But DAF assets continue to grow, as do grants from DAFs. The closeness of grants and contributions I view as actually a fairly good thing. Would love to see those keep pace with each other, and for DAF assets to kind of level off, but assets keep growing because the stock market keeps growing. And that'll actually be part of their point later on. They do break it down by national sponsors like NPT, like Fidelity, like Schwab, those sorts of folks are in the national sponsors. Community foundations are things like the Chicago Community Trust, Silicon Valley Community Foundation. Some organizations have their own DAFs. Stanford has one, Nature Conservancy has one, and then donation processors like Network for Good, they're basically pass-throughs. So breaking this down, national sponsors were 70% of all DAF assets. They took in 73% of all contributions and gave out 71% of the dollars. But obviously the number of sponsors, it's about 50 organizations. So large organizations giving large grants out. Community foundations have actually seen a decrease in contributions over the last couple of years. And so the asset size, national sponsors naturally kind of the largest, and donation processors because they're not holding the money the smallest. So not too surprising there, but the average amount of nearly $400,000 of assets is substantial. And so payouts vary. Likewise, national sponsors actually pay out more than do community foundations and single issue sponsors. And this median rate of 9.7% among all sponsors is part of the contention that they have with other reports. So the way that they figure out a payout rate is they take how much was paid out during the year and divide it by the year-end assets plus how much was paid during the year, which is the way the IRS does it as well. When National Philanthropic Trust, so that leads to about a 10% payout. When National Philanthropic Trust does it, they take all of this year's grants and they divide it with the assets that were at the beginning of the year. And so if the stock market goes up significantly during the year and the assets grow, it looks like there's a greater payout because there isn't accounting for the use of the assets at the beginning of the year. If there were a year that the stock market fell significantly and the assets went down without being paid out, that payout rate would look much smaller. But we haven't had that recently. So the IRS would say DAFs have about a 10% payout, even as others are reporting a 24% payout rate. And then the Fidelity and Schwab even make it even a little bit more confusing because they divide it by the average year-end value of DAF assets over the most recent 5 years. They're using an even smaller divisor because the stock market's gone up over the past 5 years. And so if you're looking at, year 3 of that, the assets are going to look much smaller. And so there was a study done in 2014 of the same data. IRS would say there was a 16% payout that year. Fidelity and Schwab would say there's a 28% payout that year. So, fun reminder to take DAF numbers with a grain of salt and definitely look at how the math is being done. Then there's a second report called Reinventing the Cycle from the DAF Research Collective. I would label it as a good introduction to folks. A lot of you are already doing what this report recommends, like make sure you're verifying the organization, make sure you have your EIN on the website. Don't assume that a grant was anonymous. You can investigate out where those things are. So probably not a lot of insights for the more experienced practitioners, but if you're just getting into this realm or you're training someone who's just getting into this realm, you need talking points for a board member or a generalist or those sorts of things. It's a good guide that I would recommend. So, into our potpourri section, you may have heard that the Gates Foundation is aiming to end in 20 years. Their goal is to double their giving and be asset-free by 2045. The 3 goals that they have: no mom, child, or baby dies because of a preventable cause, a world without infectious diseases, and breaking hundreds of millions free from poverty. So those are their 3 goals, and that's what all their money is going to go for, trying to solve over the next 20 years. A nonprofit hero, not the snake, but there's Tim Fried is a man who has deliberately injected and allowed himself to be himself with snake venom and allowed himself to be bit repeatedly over 2 decades. And so his blood has such a wide range of anti-venom, it is now being studied and hopefully synthesized as a solution for snake bites across the world. So he agreed to do the study after the study said, we only want your blood, we don't want you to be stung I'm not stung, bitten by more snakes. All in all, he's had more than 200 bites, more than 700 injections of venom, but snake bites kill 140,000 people annually worldwide and leave 3 times that many needing amputations or having permanent disability. Good for you, Mr. Freed. Not something that I would do. You'll notice that I didn't have an AI corner in this one, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Lego GPT is now out and the paper is available online. You can 3D print your Legos, or you can have them assembled by robots, or they will create steps for you to create your own Lego creations. So for example, this is what you get when you prompt it and say, I would like a Japanese sliding bookcase with shoji screens in a traditional design. Here's how you put together the bricks for that. And then there's also a skin that you can create for it. I want to thank those of you who actually sent me this one for the potpourri section. This was a popular news story that I had to share. Kentucky woman had 70,000 dum-dums show up on her doorstep. Liam, her 8-year-old, put it in order, Amazon. He wanted to do a carnival and he wanted dum-dums for all of his friends. And so it wasn't for him, it was to be able to give away, which is really sweet. And the money quote in this story, for me, there's a particular part of this sentence. The mom said, after a long day of working with the bank and talking to a few news stations, Amazon called and they are refunding my money. And if I feel like the phrase talking to a few news stations is doing a lot of sentence, because I guarantee you that no one wants to take back 70,000 dum-dums, especially the ones that have that little question mark on them. You don't know what flavor that is. And then finally, a runaway kangaroo did shut down a portion of an interstate highway near Tuscaloosa in Alabama on Interstate 85. Traffic was closed and 2 vehicles did crash. The animal's owner did yes, animal did own her. It's a family pet. He told the Associated Press that Sheila, name of the kangaroo, got away. They had to sedate her. He said, quote, she's back home. She's up. She's not sedated anymore. She's eating. She's drinking. She's not injured. And the money quote of this story is, they don't know what happened to the people involved in the crash. So if you're looking for Americans' priorities, cute animal, humans involved in crash. So that's what I had for today.